Martinez has been there, former two-division world champ.
そして今リングで戦おうとしているキコ・マルティネスと9年前に戦った元世界3階級制覇チャンピオンの長谷川穂積さんとともにお伝えしてまいります。お二方どうぞよろしくお願いします。
And Abe, you heard all those different
勝てば IBF の世界タイトルに挑戦でき
classifications where
る
he
という
was
挑戦者
ranked
決
the
定戦
top
です。
12,
IBF
number
の世
3
界ラン
and
クはこ
1,
ちらキコ・マルティネスが現
number
在
9
2
and
位、
2
ア
of
ベレー
them,
ヤは現在3
and
位で
number
す。
11 WBA.
キコ・マルティネスは過去
So this
2
is
階級制覇の
scheduled
世
for
界チャンピオン。
12, and
そこに
here
挑ん
we
でいく
go.
日本のアベレーヤ、アベにとってはもちろんキャリア
Remember,
最
it
大
is
の大一番を迎えたと
Martinez
いう
who
一戦にな
has
りま
the
した。
bigger
さあ
punch.
第1ラウンドのゴングが鳴りました。
Abe coming out with the
キコ・
south
マルティ
from
ネ
the
スは何と
southpaw
いっても長谷川
stance.
さん、もうファイタータイプで来ると見てほぼ間違いないですね。また来ました。
そうですね、どんどんプレッシャーをかけて前に出てくるタイプですね。
今も挨拶代わりの左フックから入ってきました。その前進を具志堅さん、アベレーヤはどうさばいていくか、そこが見どころと見ていいんでしょうか。
ですね、やっぱりジャブね、ジャブからやっぱり行ってほしいですね。
Good skills, keeps his opponents off balance with movement and out boxes and outworks them when he's at his best.
And I think, as you can see right now, he's trying to keep the fight at a distance, whereas Kiko Martinez, you know, he's you know, a lot of a good upper body movement. He seems like he's warm with the way, especially the way he came out the corner. And I think, you know, his thing right now is really to get inside, break down Abe's body, as you see right there, and go to work.
I agree. I think he'd like this bout to take place in a phone booth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question is, can Abe double up on this jab? Can he make something of that jab, like make it work? There's a three-punch combination. That's good work from Abe.
Nice little check hook getting out of there.
See Martinez very straight ahead at this point of the fight. Doesn't waste any energy.
No, not at all. So far, Abe's doing you know, it's a good job. Just doing, you know, using his jab. He's not stinging Kiko Martinez at all right as of now. But you know, he's using it to keep him at bay, and you know, to basically test the waters to see how well he could do. Nice little three-punch combination again from Abe.
Oh, there quickly you can see Martinez has got the power.
Yeah.
And Abe's just got to be careful. He's throwing those combinations, but he better keep those hands up.
I think there's a cut already on Abe. Nope.
Coming up in 30 seconds in round one.
And as you can see right now, Martinez, he's just being patient. Whereas Abe, you know, he's not doing a lot of movement, but you know, right now he's still trying to find his footing in his place. And Martinez is very patient, looking for, you know what I'm saying, looking for his shots, and you know, working his way in.
Watch that right uppercut of Martinez. Abe trying to keep him at bay as the first round ends. Abe was busy. Type of round he could have stolen.
Abe was busy, but I think that Kiko Martinez in that round at least had, I think, one or two more telling blows. But probably due to activity, they'll probably give the round to Abe.
Martinez, 37 years of age. Ranked number 2 currently by the IBF at 126 and number 7 by the WBC. So Kiko won the IBF featherweight title in November of 2021, then lost it 4 months later in his first defense, then won the IBF junior featherweight world title in August of 2013. He made 2 successful title defenses before losing the title in 2014. So you can see 10 years ago and recently, wins, loses. But he's got 2 of them.
And again, you know, he's showing it that even that we're in the second round, you know, he's showing that he still has good legs under him. And, you know, he's a worker. And he knows he has to be a worker because of his stature.
And that right hand is what I think you got to keep your eye on. A big right hand. If Abe comes in and is unprotected, he could eat some leather.
I think, you know, with Kiko Martinez coming in straight ahead, Abe should, like, you know, sit down on his punches a bit and maybe come under with an uppercut. But right now, he's so busy trying to, you know, avoid Kiko Martinez that he's not really sitting on any of his punches. Just, you know, just tat, hit, and move.
That's good. Hit and move. Circle a little bit.
Right.
Stay out of trouble.
Oh,
and there goes caught. Kiko, got caught with the right hand.
Abe got caught with something too. And rightfully so, you know, tied up. So that tells you right there, Martinez does still have some pop on those punches.
Left hook, a lunger by Kiko. I thought his right hand got through earlier. That was the most telling blow of the round. Finally, a straight left hand thrown by Abe.
Now he tried to use the check hook again, but, you know, just missed. Kiko Martinez came right under it. Nice left hand from Abe. Going around the guard of Kiko Martinez there. Tried it again.
Martinez just straight ahead, unafraid, because he doesn't think those blows from Abe are going to hurt him, and I agree.
Oh, not at all. And that's because right now, again, Abe is not really sitting on it, and most of us know that the power generates from the legs. So, you know, when you sit on your punches, that's how you generate power. But right now,
oh, good left hook, a short left hook.
From Kiko Martinez there. And he caught Abe with that short left hook because if you notice, Abe right now he's throwing from the shoulders.
And Kiko's was more textbook, from right from his body, you know?
Right.
Conservation of energy on that punch. Now he jabs finally. Martinez goes to the body. Abe, straight left hand.
And Kiko Martinez, he's good in terms of mental pressure. Like, honestly, when you get a guy like that, sometimes that can bother you and throw you off. Because it's one of those things where, like, okay, I hit him with a good shot, but he just keeps on continue coming and coming. So how do I stop this guy? And that's what I mean. Sometimes you got to sit on your punches early in the fight to gain some respect by hitting your opponent with something that makes him doubt and second guess himself ever trying to come in like that again.
Better round for Kiko Martinez, I think, as far as the judges are concerned. And there's that left uppercut, and he almost knocked him down.
Knocked Abe off balance with that, and that's when he tied him up.
See the conservation of energy in the perfect spot.
Yeah,
Abe did a great job just staying up. Thought, Jamel, you used a great term, mental pressure. People don't hear that much. Can you expand on it?
Oh, yes. Usually what we mean by mental pressure is, you know, when a guy's constantly in your face, he makes you constantly think and think and think, okay, what is he going to do, or what I need to do to keep him off me? All right, if I hit him with something and he still keeps coming, man, this guy is a train, a train that time. And you see Kiko Martinez, that's just how he is. You know, he's a worker. I mean, look at his upper body.
I'll tell you,
this guy's still built like a tank.
Right?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. Especially when you got a guy like that, you know, who has power behind him, and he just keeps on pressing the action. It makes you like second guess, like, do I have what it takes to stop him? And there's a nice little flurry of punches, but again, they don't bother Kiko Martinez. As you see right now, he's going to continue just to push forward. And though right now those little shots to the body, over time, they will take a toll. And that's
that
what
straight left hand got through, but that was it. Like, he had a 5-punch combination a couple seconds ago, and only the last straight left got through.
And if you notice right there during that tie-up, it's a little a veteran's tactic when he gets under you and presses his head under your chin, under your chin.
Kiko doing a little bit of lunging. There's a good straight left hand. Perhaps the best left by Abe in the fight.
And he sat on it.
He did. He finally sat down on it.
That's what you have to do when you got a guy like Kiko Martinez who's known to bring the fight to you.
Oh, good short punch by Martinez.
See Abe try to sneak in that his left uppercut there.
Now Martinez opening up a little bit. Throwing that left hand. Back with a straight left by Abe. So the action picking up here in the third round.
Yep, Kiko Martinez cut, I think, on the bridge of his nose.
Abe got the jab through that time.
And they see Kiko Martinez still going for he's trying to go for the body, but got a little wild up top with those two hooks.
Abe, some good defense, and he's landing the straight left. And there's the blood from Kiko. Right on the nose.
And that probably motivated him. Anytime a fighter sees blood, it can mean two things. Or for both fighters, it can mean for the fighter who was cut, they pick it up. And also, you know, a fighter who creates the cut sometimes feels that, okay, you know, I got him with something good. Let me pick it up myself and try to get him out of it. Even though it's not a crazy cut, but you know, blood definitely turns a fighter's mindset.
Blood creates opportunity.
Definitely does.
20 seconds to go in round 3. Most action in the fight thus far. And Abe, really good movement there.
Yeah, and I think Kiko Martinez maybe has to start like using angles instead of just coming in straight forward, because now Abe is picking up his timing and his space and rhythm.
Abe really strong last minute of that round, and oftentimes that resonates with the judges.
Absolutely.
Here's that straight left. Right there on the button.
Boom. And it definitely caught Martinez's attention. Straight down the pipe. Can't ask for anything better than that. And again, like I said, he sat on it, and he earned the respect from Martinez with that shot.
Interesting fight, and it's scheduled for 12. And with Kiko, you never know if it's going to go the distance, because one punch could change all that. But the way Abe fought that round, especially with his defense and his ring generalship, really good.
Yes, absolutely. But going into this round, I hope Kiko Martinez's corner told him to make some adjustments in terms of cutting off the ring. Because right now, Abe is definitely using the entire ring by boxing. Kiko Martinez, he has the right mindset, but, you know, again, he gets there and he lets him slips out just like he did right there. He had to start cutting up the ring.
And I like your point about the angles instead of coming straight in, because look, if he comes straight in, then Abe can load up, and he can also just a quick combination get out of trouble. There's just a straight left hand. Good combination by Abe, punctuated by his left hand.
And I think right now, Kiko Martinez, he's just so eager to get to him that he's not really trying to, he's not really thinking. He just moving along and chucking away. And instead of, you know, okay, making some of the right adjustments to force Abe to change up his game plan. Nice body shot from Abe.
Another straight left hand by Abe. It's like in basketball, you don't want a chucker. You want somebody who's passing. You want somebody who's shooting with smarts.
And watch where the feet at, especially with an orthodox fighter and a southpaw. Abe is trying to keep his front foot on the outside of Martinez's foot, and that's how he's slipping out the way, just like you see him right there, and turning.
And you can feel the confidence. Abe is building. He's got that straight left hand going well. Blood is coming down the face of Kiko, and Abe now throws the jab out there. He's fighting a really smart round. Combination by Abe. Good straight left hand.
And now you see the fight clearly swaying in Abe's favor, because, you know, right, he got the timing, he got the rhythm, he got the distance. He's not allowing Kiko Martinez to get in the pocket, and he's just boxing, and he's using the entire ring. But that's where Martinez wants him, like, he wants him his back against the ropes, but he's gonna have to work for it.
And if Kiko's thinking about just loading up on one punch, he's going to lose a lot of the round doing that.
Right, absolutely.
Back to the body goes Abe. Abe's footwork has been very good the last couple rounds. Started kind of slow. He almost looked methodical. There's a straight left hand by Abe. And Kiko's just walking into that leather.
Exactly.
There's another left hand.
Yeah, nice left hand. Nice pop in that left hand from Abe.
Boy, as Abe found the range.
Oh, nice little sneaky uppercut from Abe. And again, he uses the check hook to get out the way. And now he's just putting it together.
Abe likes to move to his right and then open up with the straight left. Or he could throw that jab out there.
And again, going back to the jab, even though Kiko Martinez is a shorter fighter, you know, he still can use his jab. He may have to double it up at times to get in, but instead of, you know, swinging for the hills and looking for one shot, you know, set it up, and everything starts with the jab.
Abe showing us a little uppercut as well. And a really strong round for Reiya Abe. 30 years old, from Kanagawa, Japan.
Nice
I gave him the last 2 rounds.
Yeah.
See, he missed a couple, but it doesn't matter if you throw 4 or 5 and one gets through. Who
those
cares?
Last two definitely got in.
Misses one, misses a second, blocked nicely, and there, 3.
And you've seen he changed the angle while Kiko Martinez had the high guard, so which basically he blinded himself. And by the time he caught on to it, Abe was already throwing punches from a different angle.
This is the IBF featherweight title eliminator scheduled for 12. Bruce Beck and Jamel Herring, hope you're enjoying this fight from Ariake Arena in Tokyo. First of 5 tonight on this card.
And again, you see just Kiko Martinez just dart out forward. And I think that's kind of dangerous for him because, right, again, Abe, see, just like that, he has a time in his space. And when you have space, you get full leverage on the punches. Yes.
That's like 6 or 7 punches by Abe. And now he's starting it with the jab. Oh, that was a low blow.
I think it was on the belt line. I don't know. It was a good shot, though.
It was on the Kiko. You might be okay.
Ooh.
And now Martinez coming in, and Abe is doing a good job countering as well.
But that's what Kiko Martinez wants him at. But again, he's going to have to cut the ring off. See, he just allowed him to get away. And now Abe is going right back to boxing and creating space and distance.
Kiko comes straight forward again. Abe trying to measure him, landing the straight left.
And you see Kiko, there's no jab.
Oh, good left hand again by Abe. And that left hand is shorter now. It's like crisper. It's not as far away. It's not reaching. I thought this was going to be a different fight with the man pursuing, dominating, but instead he's getting tagged as he comes in. And it's been Abe.
But he's still working. I'll give Kiko Martinez, he's still working.
And he's still capable of a 1 or 2 punch knockout.
Again, Kiko Martinez, with a boxer, you can't just expect to walk in. He has to start, using his jab and boxing his way in, and then he can get to where he wants to be at and start, throwing those heavy blows that he's been trying to land all night. Nice jab for Kiko Martinez to the midsection, but
beautiful left hand landed by Abe. Kiko's hands are a little bit lower. There's blood now around the right eye.
Nice body shots from Kiko Martinez.
Yeah, that's a little bit late. Earl Brown will tell him about that one.
That's frustration setting in. But Kiko Martinez, right now, he has the right idea. He's going to the body to take away the legs of Abe. But like I said, he has to see that right there won't get it done. You gotta box. Start using your jab, and then sit down on your punches. Nice 2-punch combination from Abe.
Kiko missing over the top. His face is bloody. Abe is finding the range. Kiko with the left hook and follows with the right hand. This is where he's got to be active.
There we go. Nice little sneaky uppercut from Kiko Martinez as well.
Final seconds of round 5. Kiko looking for something. Got a short right in there. And missed the next right. But a little bit of effort and finding some range for Kiko Martinez near the end of round 5.
Yeah, I'll probably give that round to Abe, but Kiko Martinez definitely did a lot better than the previous couple of rounds. Nice little counter left hand to back Kiko Martinez up right there, as you've seen. Followed with a combination punches.
The leverage you were talking about earlier, he wasn't sitting down on the punches. He is now.
Yeah. because he's confident.
Good uppercut.
Yeah. Nice
really,
uppercut.
Really sharp.
And then again, that check hook slip makes it easier for you to slip out of there.
Abe is 7 years younger, and you're seeing good footwork, really good by Abe, especially when he circles to his right. Cut man is Yoshimi Sakishima, doing the work in the corner for Reiya Abe.
Round 6.
And that corner, Richard Sanchez working on Kiko Martinez because that face was real bloody when he came to the corner.
Nice little right hand to the body from Kiko Martinez. And you see Abe quickly grabs him, so that tells you right there, Martinez still has some pop in those punches.
And I think it's smart for him to grab him when he gets in tight and he's in some trouble. There's back to the jab. Even if it's not that powerful, it just keeps him at bay.
Yeah.
The beauty of a quick jab and some movement. There's a straight left. He can get that in after he jabs a bit.
See, right now, Abe, he really wants to keep it in the center ring. He doesn't do himself any favors when he keeps backing up towards the ropes. Right now, Martinez hasn't made him pay for that, but you know, if his legs start to fail, you know, give him from under him, you know, it might be a longer night for Abe than when he has to make it.
Abe with another short left. It looked like an uppercut. Again, circling to his right, finding his range, setting up the straight left hand, which has really been ever present in this bout.
Nice little body shot there from Martinez. And even moments like that, that takes a lot out of you when a fighter goes to the ground because it takes a lot of your legs.
Kiko right on top of him.
Nice little sneaky uppercut from Kiko Martinez, right uppercut.
And Kiko will not be held down. Abe waiting patiently, gets it a straight left. Kiko continues to pursue, though. That's his style. It's not going to change.
No. But you can tell it's taking a little bit of effect.
Straight left hand by Abe.
Follow with a counter right from Kiko Martinez up top, though.
Good combination by Abe.
Yep. Oh, nice left uppercut.
Abe's got him in trouble. Abe lands the combination. Martinez in some trouble up against the ropes. Abe goes to the stomach. Another straight left hand by Abe gets through. Martinez, keep an eye on him. 35 seconds left in the round.
Abe has to watch with his hands. He had to bring those hands back.
Abe goes
nice combination from Abe
to the midsection, and that'll wear on as the fight goes on. Again to the body.
You can see right now, Kiko Martinez has his mouth wide open, and that probably can tell you that those body shots is taking a toll and bringing fatigue. Yeah, definitely fatigue factor setting in.
Abe had a pretty good chance to try to score a knockdown in that round, but Martinez weathered it. We're halfway through the fight.
There's that uppercut. Bam.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of took his legs out from under him for a moment.
He knew he had the opportunity here, he couldn't get it done. He won the round. Didn't get the knockdown maybe he was looking for.
He definitely went around though.
And you know what else, Jamel? He's starting to work the body. In that round, he probably threw 5 to 10 good body shots. What do they say? That'll stay with you till the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, the cutman has his work cut out from Martinez's corner.
Richard Sanchez working Yeoman over there. And now Earl Brown wants to have the doctor take a look at the bloody face of Kiko Martinez. Martinez disinterested in stopping in any way. That's not his style. Doctor taking a look. You can see there's a gash underneath his left eye.
Yeah, he's getting busted up.
And on the right eyebrow, he's messed up pretty good too. Round number 7, second half of the bout. Martinez swinging wildly there.
I was trying to use his jab, but he's not putting anything on that jab. He's just, you know, kind of sticking it out there. Martinez, that is.
Abe exudes confidence in this fight.
Yeah, nice little stop and pop there. You seen a moment ago from Abe. He stopped for a quick moment, sat down and threw the left hand.
Don't hold him, break. Let him go, don't punch.
Here comes Kiko, but Abe is ready for him.
He gets out the corner. Spins out, just like he said, just again. And brings it back to the center of the ring. That's where Abe wants to be at.
And he moves with the jab, and then he looks for the straight left. Abe upstairs, good punch.
The uppercut, that left uppercut is found a good home for Abe this entire matchup. She got caught there with a left hook from Kiko Martinez.
That was a good punch by Kiko.
Got to bring those hands back up.
Abe back to work, 4-punch combination, and then he moves, gets on his bicycle. Back to the body goes Abe. Now he's upstairs, he's mixing it up well.
Slips out again. Nice little right hand from Martinez to the body.
And that time Abe downstairs, upstairs, mixing things up. Ooh. Straight left hand by Abe, right on the button.
That was flush. Tried it again. Abe, he's sitting on that left hand. Nice little combination from Abe.
And it's punctuated by that short, crisp jab now. Ooh. Abe, uppercut, ooh. Straight left hand Abe. Really doing work here in the 7th. Kiko starting to lunge.
Yeah, Kiko right now, he's just coming. Nothing has really changed from the first round. He's been on the same gear. As where, you know, Abe, he showed a lot of different points from his arsenal. Like, you know, he's working the jab, he's using the angle, the check hook, the uppercut.
I know Gil Clancy would yell at me for this word, but he's been multi-dimensional in this fight.
Yeah.
He used to say to me, Bruce, you can't talk to a fan back in a gym like that. Straight left hand by Abe. Again.
Then it's a check right hook from Abe to get out the way.
Left hand after Kiko came in, and there was a late punch there, and Abe not happy about it. As the 7th round draws to a close, and there's a lot of blood on Abe. I'm not sure, it might be.
I think it's cut over the eye, on the lid. Yep.
And I think some of that might be the blood coming from Martinez.
Oh, nice. Ooh, nice. Yeah, that takes it out of you. That body shot will take it out of you. That uppercut to the body from Abe. And that left hand has found a home all night. Bam.
And that's a 2-punch combination. Make
3.
That 3.
Hold that.
Look at that stare, that focus. Kiko came in, went with the left hook, and then he just ate some leather. Good. That was the good body shot right at the bell, and you could see Abe was grimacing. I think it was a clean shot. It's just a question of whether it was clean after the bell.
No, it was definitely after the bell.
It was above you know, south of the border, so it was safe, but it might have been late.
It was late.
Round number 8 scheduled for 12. IBF featherweight title eliminator Kiko Martinez, Reiya Abe. Coming to you from Ariya K Arena in Tokyo. First of 5 bouts on the card tonight.
And Kiko Martinez has landed some good punches, but it's just one here and one there, whereas Abe, you know, he's throwing a lot of punches in bunches.
Even that straight short left hand was good. That was kind of a sweeping left.
Yeah, again, you've seen it again.
How many different ways can you throw a left hand? Straight,
so
angle,
many. Over, under.
Can Martinez generate anything here where he can put together a combination or a powerful punch that can get Abe on the canvas?
I mean, he's obviously still dangerous because there's a reason why, you know, Abe is still using that entire ring to stay at bay from Kiko Martinez. Because Kiko Martinez still has some pop on the punches. I mean, you've seen that body shot, even though it was after the bell, it did have some effect on it. Nice hook from Martinez.
And Martinez has 31 knockouts in his 44 victories, so he's capable of pulling one out of the hat because he's getting beat pretty good as far as the scoring goes. There's going to be a point where he's going to need a miracle. Abe back to work, straight left hand. Circles to the right often. There's the jab and there's the body blow.
And that's what I mean by because Martinez at times having a high guard. Abe, he'll just take that slight turn and then he'll throw off the angle while you're blindsided by your own gloves from the high guard.
And the straight left hand of Abe is getting through because I think Kiko's getting a little tired of dropping that right hand. Back to the jab. Oh, good left. Abe scoring twice.
Nice combination. Again, stop, pop, get out of there, box, go back to the jab. That's it.
That short little jab and uppercut, Jamel, that's just bothersome.
Boxing one-on-one.
And now Abe is able to play games a little bit, try to pick his spot.
Yeah, this is probably the first time you actually see Kiko Martinez actually slow down for a bit and, you know, take a breather, as you said. Gotta watch that hand.
Abe doubling up that time in the straight left hand. You know, he's the Japan Boxing Commission and Sports Writers Club 2022 Efforts Award winner. We're seeing effort from Abe. His busyness has been impressive.
Yeah. Slip under. Bam. Left hand. Left hand's been there all night. That's another angle.
Abe owns the WBO Asia Pacific featherweight title. Now trying to move his way into this IBF featherweight title eliminator series. Get himself in position to get a shot at the title. And he's number 3 in the IBF. You would think he is getting close.
I mean, yeah, with a win here, definitely, from what we're seeing so far, if he with a win here, he's definitely going to earn his shot because he's been putting on a beautiful performance.
He really has. Round number 9.
Nice straight right hand from Kiko Martinez. Again, I would like to see him, you know, box his way in instead of trying to just dive in and lunge in at times.
And Kiko is eating a lot of leather in this fight. He's still moving, still coming in.
Right.
You can't question his heart.
No, not at all.
And he's been doing that for a long time. He's had 18 years as a pro, 337 total rounds, 59 world championship rounds.
Oh, that hurt. That hurt. That left hand from Abe hurt.
Kiko fires off the right hand, but Abe, no problem, comes back with his own straight left.
Nice little sneaky left uppercut from Kiko Martinez there as Abe was trying to spin out.
Abe's been very efficient in this fight. He hasn't wasted a lot of punches, except in the first couple rounds when he was trying to figure out the range.
Yeah. Once he figured out the timing and the space, you know, we've been seeing this for the last 7 rounds or so. Nice little counter going on underneath from Abe.
Abe's footwork has been outstanding.
Again, straight left hand from Abe.
Abe with the straight left, short one.
And you can see at times when Abe takes that little half step back, he's basically setting up traps because he knows Kiko Martinez is going to come directly straight in. And that's why he'll take a half step back and he'll sit on his left hand and he'll throw it or come with a left uppercut or so in combination punches.
Kiko wants that left hook. He's lunging, looking for it.
He's looking for it, yeah.
He's got to try to pull off a miracle now, I think.
And again, you can see, you can clearly see the way Abe has his hands placements. At times, when he stops shaking that left hand, he's setting it up for something big.
Kiko's moving well, but I thought in that last Abe punch, he looked off balance maybe, and maybe those legs are going a little bit at age 37. Abe, straight left hand.
Nice jab from Abe. Two-punch combination from Abe.
Abe, three-punch combination, punctuated by the left hand. And the blood continues to stream down the face of Kiko Martinez.
Now Abe's starting to load up a little bit more on that left hand.
He's showing us a little more power in these last few rounds. Abe's got plenty of blood coming out of his nostrils. Kiko's got blood all over the place. Wow, that's a nasty left.
Yep, see, like I said,
see,
that
did
hurt.
You see the,
yeah,
did you see the
I'll tell you, yeah, that hurt him.
I thought that's where the legs looked a little wobbly.
Little stutter step there.
Let's dance.
Again, like I mean, he's setting up traps. Half step back. Oh no, this is with that beautiful that left hook from Kiko Martinez. But you could, like I said, Abe, when he takes that little half step back, it's because he knows that Kiko Martinez is going to lunge in, so he gets a little bit of space to set that trap, let go of that left hand, whether it's a straight or a left uppercut from Abe.
Trainer Gata Katabuchi doing a really good job with Abe with this game plan, and it's being implemented extremely well and executed extremely well as we go to round 10. I gave Martinez a second round, and I haven't given him a round since.
So basically, on your card, he needs a knockout, which everyone probably can agree on right now.
I think
who's watching.
And there's that straight left hand. And he hasn't forgotten about the jab when he needs to, especially when he's moving.
I always said the jab is probably the most important punch because the jab sets up everything. Just like that combination. It starts with everything starts with the jab.
Here comes Kiko.
Nice little check hook from Abe.
Pressuring him. But as he comes in, he ends up eating a lot of leather.
Sneaky left hook from Martinez. Tries it again. Missed there.
Probably been his best punch in the bout. Abe showing patience, and there's the 2 or 3 punch combination.
Because he's waiting. He's waiting because he knows his spacing between him and Martinez. So he'll sit there at times and wait for Martinez to jump in before he lets his hands go.
I think it's getting more difficult to see out of that right eye for Kiko.
Runs there from Abe.
And if you're Abe now, Jamel, you just got to be smart too. You don't want to run into one punch.
I mean, yeah, because Kiko Martinez is still pushing forward. I mean, right now, you know, he's slowed down a bit, but you know, he's still determined to get in on the inside and create damage.
Still capable.
Absolutely.
He's got the resume to prove it with the knockouts. Abe, uppercut. Abe, 2-punch combination. And the left hand was the power one of the 2.
Nice jab from Abe. Going right back to the stick. See, when he gets like that, he's trying to bait him, trying to bait Kiko Martinez to jump in and come in. So, you see how he has that left hand cocked back? Yeah, he's setting it up.
And he's so confident in it right now. He knows he can score. If Kiko drops that glove, he's going to go after him. He just missed it.
A little too far out. And a little wild from Abe there with that shot.
An old coach used to tell me, confident, not cocky.
Right. So now he's reaching.
Final seconds of round number 10. Abe slowed down a little bit in the round. Kiko did a little bit of movement and got a couple of hooks in there. And you could argue that he maybe won that round, but it's still a long way to go.
Still needs, yeah, he needs that KO.
Kiko's trainer, Gabriel Sarmiento, and his cut man, Richard Sanchez, have been really busy. And Abe's corner, trainer Gata Karabuchi, cut man Yushimi Sekishima. Fight has not been short of action.
No. And credit to Martinez. Though he's down, he hasn't given it up. You know, he's still pushing forward. And still even now coming straight out the bell. Look.
Former 2-division world champion. It shows.
Absolutely. You know, yeah, he definitely shows that he has the heart of a champion and the experience and the grit.
A lot of years, a lot of fights, a lot of rounds for Kiko Martinez.
A lot of wars.
You know what the old expression is, Jamel? How do you get to Broadway? Practice. That's the only route. Let's see what Abe does now. He took a little time off, a little bit of a rest during the 10th round.
Martinez still determined though. Nice little short right hand from Martinez. Didn't have much on it, but it landed on the mark.
And a jab from Martinez. We haven't seen many of them in the fight.
No.
First time in a while, Abe's gotten quiet.
I mean, he's had a lot of output. Yeah, nice two-punch combination from Abe.
Yeah, there's no question. He has thrown a plethora of punches in this fight. Now he's back on his horse.
See, Martinez right now is doing a lot of following. He needs, even though it's late in the fight, I still like to see him at least try attempt to cut the ring off and make his job a lot easier. Right now, he's walking straight into just punches, just like he just walked into that left hand.
Straight left got through, and it did score by Abe. Abe toying with him a little bit.
Three-punch combination from Abe.
Abe's legs have been outstanding in this fight. And his defense. People don't talk about defense. His defense has been really good. He's ducked under, he's slipped, he's moved well both ways. There's a straight jab, a jab that he threw in there. Just get it through.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with throwing that.
Nice little sneaky left hook, left hand.
It's almost Abe wants to throw that left, and whenever he really wants to, he lands it.
And he hasn't really sat on his hook, but he's used it basically as a defensive move to get out of harm's way from Martinez's attack.
You think his uppercut's been even better than the hook? Yeah. That thing's been like, that's been ever present. There's
left
that
hand.
straight. He waits and waits. Sometimes he misses three. Does it matter? No.
Okay.
Final round coming up in this IBF featherweight title eliminator. Reiya Abe, 24-3-1. Number 3 ranked by the IBF, and Kiko Martinez, the former 2-division world champion, 44-11-2 with 31 KOs, 18 years of experience. Former 2-time IBF featherweight world champion and the former IBF junior featherweight world champion. A little older now at age 37. This has been Abe's fight to this point. Let's see if he closes it impressively. You don't want to get careless.
No. Because right now you can tell. Right now Martinez knows he has to put everything on the line this round. So Abe definitely, you know, he wants to stay out of harm's way and just box. He doesn't want to make any crazy mistakes of risking a victory and going leading at the end of this fight.
A little bit reminiscent of the first couple rounds where it's a lot of dancing and not much punching. But in between, we saw plenty. There's a straight left.
Ooh. Try to sneak in that left uppercut again. And you can see right now Martinez going to the body to try to slow him down. But Abe's been doing this all night comfortably. So
look at that 3-punch combination. Oftentimes he starts with the straight left.
Yeah, straight, just like he did right there.
There's a doubling up on the jab work. Abe's fought a smart fight.
That he has.
And I didn't expect it early in those first couple rounds. It didn't look like he could even reach with that straight left hand.
He found his mark, though. Credit to Martinez, though. He's still trying.
He's got the warrior mentality. He's been in the ring almost half his life. Backing up Abe. Here's Martinez. Can he pull off a miracle? Can that left hook somehow get through?
Gotta set it up.
Less than 45 seconds to go. And Abe knows not to do anything that's not intelligent. Martinez still shows his legs at age 37.
Yeah, I'll give him that. He definitely didn't slow down. Well, took his foot off the gas going into this last round.
His face is bloody. He's hanging in there. But it's been Abe who has been a marksman in this fight.
Yeah, an extra left hand from Abe.
And that will do it.
Good fight. Good fight.
Really good fight. Tremendous smarts and tremendous execution by Abe. And Martinez survives the 12th round. Abe's got that cut underneath the right eyebrow, whereas Kiko's got marks everywhere. There were just so many punches that were effective that got through. It's hard for Martinez's face not to reflect it.
Well, Martinez definitely has a lot of heart. A lot of heart and respect.
So I had it 10 rounds to 2, which would be an 8-point difference. See how the judges handle it.
And Abe's team, they did a good job with that cut because it's in a bad spot.
Yeah, it really is.
It didn't seem to bother him throughout the fight.
It's smack right in the middle there.
Right.
You know, below the eyebrow, above the eye. Is that a classic spot for getting one? Yeah, that's nasty. Earl Brown did a good job in that fight, the referee. That's the face of a warrior. Martinez has been a real pro his whole career.
ライブボクシング4 IBF 世界フェザー級王座挑戦者決定戦12ラウンド採点をお知らせいたします。まずジャッジロバート・ホイル117対111、ジャッジドナルド・トレラー、同じくジャッジスティーブ・ウェイスフェルド119対109、以上3対0のユナニマスディシジョンをもちまして勝者青コーナー自称天才ヤマトの雷神。
So a unanimous decision for Reiya Abe. I don't think there was ever a question. And he's put himself in great position to get a shot likely at the IBF title. Wonderful job tonight by Reiya.